My fiancé said, "My dad needs to test drive your new Audi for a month. Show him some respect." I replied, "Of course." Then I reported the car stolen when he didn't return it in 24 hours. When the cops pulled him over, I've worked my ass off my entire life. Grew up in a mobile home park where the highlight of my childhood was when my mom could afford the name brand cereal instead of the bags with cartoon knockoff mascots. Worked 3 jobs through college to graduate debt-free. Spent 6 years at a tech company working 70-hour weeks while living in a studio apartment and driving a 15-year-old Honda that made sounds even my mechanic couldn't identify. 4 weeks ago, at 32 years old, I finally bought myself something nice, a brand new 2023 Audi S5. Nothing wildly extravagant like an R8, but still the nicest thing I've ever owned. Black exterior, black leather interior, with the available 6-speed manual transmission. I saved for years for the down payment, ran the numbers a dozen different ways, and made sure the monthly payments fit comfortably within my budget. This car was my one indulgence after a lifetime of financial caution. My fiancée, Ellie, wasn't thrilled about it. "It's so flashy," she said when I drove it home. "Couldn't you have gotten something more practical?" This from a woman who drops $300 on a single pair of shoes without blinking. I brushed it off. We've been together 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and I've learned to pick my battles. This was important to me, and she'd get over it. For context, Ellie doesn't drive, she takes public transit to work, so it's not like she needed input on a car she'd never use. Or so I thought. 3 days after finalizing my extended warranty paperwork, we were having dinner at her parents' house. Something we do every other Sunday. I get along fine with her mom, but her dad, Roger, has always been difficult. He's one of those guys who believes his opinions are facts and everyone else is just misinformed. Throughout dinner, Roger kept bringing up my car, making little jabs. "Must be nice to waste money like that when you're young. Hope you got gap insurance. Those things depreciate faster than bananas ripen. How many actual horses would that horsepower buy? Now that would be a smart investment." I smiled and nodded, same as I always do. Roger owns a successful construction company and Ellie is his only child. She adores him, and maintaining peace with him has always been part of the relationship deal. As we were leaving, Roger followed us out to the driveway and asked for the keys so he could see how she handles. I handed them over, explicitly saying, "Just a quick spin around the block, right?" He nodded as he adjusted the seat. Instead of taking a short drive, he tuned my radio to a country station and said, "I'll bring it back next time you guys come over for dinner." Then he winked at Ellie and drove off in my car, leaving us standing next to his Ford F-350. Before I could process what just happened, Ellie turned to me with a smile. "Dad needs to test drive it for a while. You know how he is about cars. He wants to make sure you didn't get ripped off." "For 2 weeks?" I asked, dumbfounded. "It'll probably be more like a month," she said casually. "He's going fishing with his buddies at Lake Powell next weekend." I stared at her. "He's taking my brand new Audi on a fishing trip?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't be so uptight. It's just a car, and it's important to show Dad some respect. He's old-fashioned that way." "Here," she added, tossing me her dad's truck keys. "Dad said you can use his truck until he brings yours back. See? He's being considerate." We argued the whole way home in Roger's truck, which smelled like cigars and had an empty Big Gulp wedged in every cup holder. Ellie couldn't understand why I was being so selfish and making a big deal out of nothing. According to her, I should be honored that Roger wanted to drive my car. The next morning, I called Roger. No answer. I texted him. No response. I called Ellie at work. "Oh yeah, Dad mentioned you might call. He's in meetings all day," she said. "He really likes the car, by the way. Says the acceleration is impressive." "I need it back today," I told her. "I have client meetings tomorrow, and I'm not showing up in a truck that has built Ford Tough mud flaps. Plus, my insurance only covers occasional other drivers with my permission. Not someone taking my car for weeks at a time. If he has an accident, I could be personally liable." "You're being ridiculous," she sighed. "Dad's doing you a favor by testing it out. Just use the truck for a few weeks. It's not like it doesn't run." I took a deep breath. "Ellie, I'm serious. That car is in my name. I'm responsible for it, And I didn't agree to lend it to your father for a month. Whatever. I've got to go. And please stop bothering Dad about this. It's embarrassing. She hung up. I sat there for a minute, thinking about the situation. This wasn't just about the car. It was about respect. Or rather, the complete lack of it. I tried calling Roger again that evening, straight to voicemail. I texted Ellie asking for her dad's address so I could go pick up my car. She replied, "Stop being a baby about a car. Dad will bring it back when he's done with it." That was it. The line in the sand. The next morning, exactly 48 hours after my car had been taken, I called the police and reported the unauthorized use of my vehicle. My car was taken under false pretenses and hasn't been returned, I explained to the officer. I gave permission for a brief test drive only, explicitly denying extended use. But now the person who has it is refusing to return it and isn't responding to my calls. I gave them Roger's name, explained that he was my fiancé's father, and provided all the details they needed. The officer explained that while this might ultimately be considered a civil matter given the family connection, the continued possession of the vehicle after explicit denial of permission could constitute unauthorized use of a motor vehicle or theft by conversion in our state. "Are you sure you want to pursue this?" the officer asked, given the family connection. "Absolutely," I replied. "The car is financed in my name. I'm responsible for it. I've made multiple attempts to resolve this directly, but they're ignoring me." 2 hours later, I got a call from an absolutely livid Ellie. "The police just pulled Dad over on the highway," she screamed. "He's being detained. What the hell did you do?" "I reported my car as being taken and held without permission," I replied calmly. "You gave him the keys." "I gave him the keys for a test drive around the block, not a month-long joyride that includes a fishing trip. I tried to resolve this reasonably, multiple times. You and your dad both ignored me." She called me every name in the book, then hung up. 15 minutes later, I got a call from Roger. The police had released him without charges after he explained the situation, recognizing it as a family dispute with unclear permission. However, following standard procedure for recovered vehicles reported taken without authorization, they had impounded my car pending verification of ownership. "You disrespectful little shit," he began, "after everything I've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Roger?" I interrupted. "Because from where I'm standing, you took my car without permission, ignored my calls, and planned to take it on a fishing trip without even asking. I was testing it, making sure you hadn't made a stupid financial decision. That's what fathers do. No, that's what controlling people do when they don't have boundaries. I'm not married to your daughter yet, and even if I was, you don't get to take my things without permission." He spluttered for a bit, threatened to call off the wedding, then hung up. Within minutes, my phone was blowing up with texts from Ellie, her mom, her aunts, even her cousins. Apparently, Roger had told everyone I had him arrested for borrowing a car. I turned my phone off and drove Roger's truck to the impound lot to retrieve my Audi. When I got there, I had to show my driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, and vehicle title. I filled out several forms, confirming I was the legal owner, and explained the situation to the clerk. After paying the $320 impound fee and signing a document resolving the unauthorized use report, they finally released my car. The car was undamaged, except for the half-eaten bag of beef jerky on the passenger seat and the country music preset on every radio station. I drove home, parked Roger's truck in front of our apartment building, and texted Ellie that her dad's truck was parked outside with the keys in the center console. Around 8 p.m., Ellie came home. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was cold. "My father will never forgive you for this humiliation," she said, standing in the doorway of our apartment. "How could you do this to my family? How could your father take my car for a month without permission?" I countered, "How could you think that was acceptable? It's what Dad does." She exclaimed, as if explaining something to a child. "He tests things out, makes sure they're good enough. He did the same thing with my sister's husband's boat, my cousin's jet skis. And they were all okay with that?" She hesitated. "Well, they understood. It's just how Dad shows he cares. By taking their expensive possessions without real permission? That's not caring, Ellie. That's controlling. And it's not okay." We argued for hours. Eventually, the truth came out. Roger had always done this kind of thing, and everyone in the family just accepted it because it was easier than standing up to him. Qley had grown up thinking it was normal for her father to test everything, from her prom date's car to her college apartment's security system, which he disabled to prove it was worthless. Looking back, I realized there had been signs Qley wasn't entirely comfortable with her father's behavior. Small winces when he'd borrow her cousin's boat without asking. Quiet apologies after he'd rearranged her apartment furniture during a visit. She'd been conditioned to accept it, but some part of her recognized it wasn't normal. "He's just protective," she insisted. "He wants to make sure things are good enough for his family." "No," I replied. "He wants control. And you've all given it to him for so long that you can't even see how messed up it is." She left that night to stay with her parents. The next day, her mother called me, surprisingly not to yell, but to talk. "Roger is a stubborn man," she said quietly. "No one has ever stood up to him like this. It's causing him to think." "I'm sorry if I created problems," I told her, "but I couldn't just let him take my car for a month." There was a long pause. "I know," she finally said, "and between us, it's about time someone pushed back." Later, Qley revealed that her mother had often played peacekeeper, quietly returning items Roger had borrowed and smoothing things over with affected family members. She'd tried to establish boundaries early in their marriage, but eventually gave up. Seeing someone finally stand up to him successfully had given her hope. 2 days later, Roger showed up at my door. No Qley, just him, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen before. "I've been thinking," he said stiffly. "Maybe I overstepped." Coming from Roger, this was practically a tearful apology while prostrate on the ground. "I appreciate that," I replied. "Would you like to come in?" We talked for nearly 2 hours. For the first time, we had a real conversation. He told me about growing up poor, how he built his business from nothing, and how terrified he was that his only daughter might struggle financially. His testing things was his way of making sure his family had only the best, the safest, the most reliable. "But you crossed a line with the car," I told him, "and with how you've treated me since I proposed to Qley." Surprisingly, he nodded. "I know, it's hard for me to see her with anyone, but calling the cops, that took balls. No one stands up to me. Maybe that's what she needs." It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. Later that evening, Qley came home. She was still upset but willing to talk. "Dad says he respects you now," she said, sounding confused. "That's not something he says about many people." "I respect him too," I replied, "but that doesn't mean I'll let him walk all over me." She thought about that for a long time. "I don't know how to navigate this," she finally admitted. "My whole life, what Dad says goes." "I know, but if we're going to build a life together, we need to be partners. That means we stand together, not you and your dad on one side and me on the other." The next few weeks were tense but productive. Qley and I had many long conversations about boundaries, respect, and what we wanted our future to look like. She started to see her father's behavior in a new light, and I began to understand why she'd been so conditioned to accept it. As for Roger, he's making an effort. Last Sunday dinner, he actually asked my opinion on some business matters. And when we left, he walked us to my car, admired it one more time, and then, miracle of miracles, walked back to his own truck without asking for the keys. The wedding is still on, though we've postponed it for 6 months to work through some of these issues. Qley has started therapy to unpack her family dynamics, and I've promised to be more understanding of the adjustment she's going through. Oh, and I installed a GPS tracker in my Audi. A commercially available one, primarily for theft protection, a legitimate concern after what happened. I disclosed this to Qley a few weeks later, wanting to be transparent about security measures on a vehicle she occasionally uses. Trust but verify, right? Edit. Since this blew up, here are some follow-up answers to common questions. Yes, I did explicitly tell Roger he couldn't take the car for more than a quick drive around the block. He chose to ignore that. No, this isn't the first red flag in the relationship, but it was the first time I couldn't just roll with it. There's a big difference between putting up with Roger's opinions at dinner and letting him take my $53,000 car on a fishing trip. For those saying I should have pressed charges, the police officer who handled the case recognized it as a complex family situation with unclear permission rather than straightforward theft. They suggested trying to resolve it as a family matter first, which I appreciated. Several people have asked if I'm still with Ellie. Yes, we're working through things. She grew up thinking her dad's behavior was normal. That kind of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. To the person who asked if the Audi is really that great, yes it is, and Roger is never driving it again. Update 3 months later. The amount of interest in this situation has been surprising, but here's where things stand now. Ellie and I are still together and still engaged, though the wedding is now planned for next year rather than this fall. She's been seeing a therapist who specializes in family dynamics, and it's been eye-opening for her to realize how much her father's controlling behavior shaped her view of what's normal. The biggest change has been in our communication. We now have a rule. We decide things together, then present a united front to both our families. No more divide and conquer. As for Roger, he's trying. There have been a few backslides, like when he suggested we switch our wedding venue to one owned by his golf buddy, or when he attempted to upgrade my lawnmower by taking it for servicing without asking. But each time we've had calm, direct conversations about boundaries, and he's actually listening. The most surprising development came last month when Ellie's cousin got engaged. Her fiancé bought a new truck, and at the family dinner where they announced their engagement, Roger started his usual routine about testing it out. Before I could say anything, Ellie spoke up. "Dad, if you want to drive James's truck, you need to ask him directly and respect his answer if it's no." The entire table went silent. Roger looked shocked, then oddly proud. He turned to James and said, "Your truck looks solid. If you ever want my opinion on it, let me know." And that was it. Later that night, Ellie's mom pulled me aside. "Whatever you did," she whispered, "thank you. 40 years I've been with that man, and I've never seen him back down like that." I've come to understand that Roger isn't a bad person. He's just someone who never had boundaries set on him. He's learning, albeit slowly, that respect goes both ways. As for the Audi, it's still running perfectly, and no one but me has driven it since the incident. Oh, and for those wondering about the GPS tracker, I eventually told Ellie about it, expecting her to be upset. Instead, she laughed and said, "Smart. I would have done the same thing. Maybe we'll be okay after all." Final edit. To the commenter who asked if I'd let Roger drive the Audi again if he asked properly. He actually did ask about a month ago. Politely. I said yes, handed him the keys, and we went for a drive together. He complimented the handling, I showed him some of the features, and when we got back to his house, he returned the keys immediately.